You decide how you want to serve. And if you want to serve good, you're going to win quicker and you save energy.
Imagine flying 14 hours to watch your player compete. You have your flag, you have your shirt, you have your voice. You showed up early because you know what Filipinos do. They pack every corner of every court and make noise that shakes the walls.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be back. Can't wait to be out on court and I hope to see you there.
Of course, we have to mention Eala, the incredible fandom coming, across the globe, especially from the Filipino community.
Madrid knew this. Every tournament on the WTA circuit knows this. Then the schedule drops. Court 5. Not Manolo Santana, not Arantxa Sanchez, Court 5. A peripheral strip of clay that seats a fraction of the crowd that traveled from Manila, from Los Angeles, from Hong Kong just to be there. This happened 4 days ago. This is documented. This is not a rumor. Boris Becker, who was present and vocal throughout the 2026 Madrid tournament, went completely speechless when confronted with the reality of how this week's women's draw unraveled. And the Filipino fanbase responded to the Court 5 decision in a way that has now been described as a boycott unlike anything the Madrid final weekend has ever seen. Like never before.
I got to watch Eala as well. She has made her debut here over the last couple of years, and she's won some matches here. Out of all the clay tournaments, this might be her best, her favorite as well.
Eala has since pulled out of Catalonia. She's gone quiet. The clay season is bleeding out. 3 tournaments, 3 early exits. A 20-year-old ranked world number 44, now skipping events and heading straight to Rome with questions nobody inside the tour is willing to answer publicly. And the crowd that made her famous in this sport is not quiet at all. Hit subscribe if you're here for the full story. This goes somewhere nobody expected. Rome is not a consolation prize, but the fact that Eala skipped the Catalonia Open entirely, a tournament where she was seeded 3rd, where she had a genuine shot at ranking points, tells you everything about where her head is right now. You do not withdraw from a tournament you were expected to win unless something deeper is bothering you. The official reason floating around is rest and preparation, but rest from what exactly? She played 2 singles matches in Madrid, 2, and walked away with 3 games across the second one. That 6-2, 6-1 scoreline against Elise Mertens on Court 5 was not just a loss, it was a dismantling. Eala lost her serve 5 times. She could not break Mertens once. She won 38 points from a total of 99 played. At one stage during the second set, she received a code violation from the umpire and visibly argued the call, standing alone on a peripheral court, disputing a ruling with barely anyone in the stands to back her up. That image matters, because 12 months ago, Eala was never alone on a court. The crowd was always there. The Filipino fan base did not suddenly disappear from Madrid. Madrid made sure they could not get in. To understand why that decision landed the way it did, you have to go back to the Australian Open in January. Thousands of Filipinos descended on Melbourne Park for Eala's first-round match. The BBC reported a line stretching several hundred yards through the grounds. Court 6, which seats roughly 1,000 people, was overwhelmed before the match even started. Filipino tennis coach Carl Santamaria, who was sitting in the stands that day, said afterward that the AO organizers should have seen it coming. That Eala was being mobbed during practice sessions days before the match and nobody acted on it. Melbourne put her on a small court and the crowd still came anyway. They stood outside, they watched through gaps. They made noise that carried across the complex. That is the precedent every tournament on the WTA circuit had access to by the time Madrid's scheduling team sat down in April 2026. Every other major event this season drew the obvious conclusion. Dubai gave Eala a bigger court. Indian Wells accommodated the crowd. Miami did the same. Tournament directors at each of those events understood that Eala's draw was not just a tennis story, it was a ticketing and atmosphere story. More fans through the gate means more revenue. More atmosphere means more broadcast engagement. Putting Eala on the right court is not charity, it is basic commercial logic. Madrid looked at all of that evidence and chose Court 5 for a second-round match against the world's number 21 player. Greg Rusedski, speaking on his Off Court Cuts podcast this week, addressed the nature of Eala's clay losses directly. He said the defeats are bruising but not alarming. He pointed to her Stuttgart loss against Leylah Fernandez as context, noting that Fernandez had just pushed Elena Rybakina, one of the best players alive on any surface, to 3 sets the following round. His argument was that Eala is not losing to weak opponents. She is losing to players operating at a genuinely high level, and the scorelines exaggerate the gap. He told Filipino fans specifically to be patient. He said she has a great team, that she will get physically stronger, that she will become more tactically sharp on clay. He called her the Manny Pacquiao of the Philippines on the same podcast, a comparison that speaks to the cultural weight she carries in a country that has been searching for its next global sports icon since Pacquiao retired from boxing. That weight is not metaphorical. Filipino sports journalist TJ Manotoc put it plainly earlier this year. He said that during Pacquiao's peak, everything in the country would stop. People would gather around screens at 3 a.m. Entire communities would organize around his fight schedule. That level of collective investment does not transfer easily to tennis, a sport with etiquette rules, quiet during rallies requirements, and a culture that Filipino fans are still learning to navigate. But the emotional engine driving that fan base is identical. They are not casual viewers, they are not bandwagon supporters. These are people who book international flights, block out work schedules, and travel to multiple continents across a single season to watch one player compete. Madrid reduced all of that to Court 5. The boycott framing that spread through the Filipino tennis community after the court assignment became public was not organized in advance. It was a spontaneous reaction to a visible slight. Supporters who had planned to attend the Mertens match and found themselves squeezed out of a venue that could not accommodate them made a collective decision. Some explicitly, some just by turning away at the entrance. The court filled with whoever was already nearby. The roar that defines every Eala match at every other tournament was absent. She played in near silence on a surface that already gives her problems, against a player whose serve percentage that day sat at 93% on first deliveries, while Eala's own serve, already identified by analysts as her most significant technical weakness, won her only 53% of first serve points. The combination of those factors produced exactly the kind of result the scoreline suggested. Not a competitive match, a collapse. Colin Fleming flagged the serve issue during Sky Sports coverage of the Madrid Open. He said clearly that Eala's second serve is where opponents are currently targeting her. In her first round win over Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, she won only 37% of second serve points. Pavlyuchenkova, a 34-year-old ranked 116th in the world and well past her peak, could not capitalize on that weakness consistently enough to hurt Eala. Mertens is a different kind of player entirely. She is disciplined, tactical, and experienced enough to identify and attack a pattern within the first few games of a set. By the time the first set was over, the match was functionally finished. What makes the court decision more difficult to defend is the timing. Madrid did not schedule Eala on Court 5 because of a lack of information. They had just watched her beat Pavlyuchenkova on the Arantxa Sanchez Vicario Stadium in round 1. They saw the crowd, they heard the noise, they had the attendance data in front of them. The downgrade from a 12,000-seat stadium to a side court happened after all of that, not before it. That sequence is important. This was not an oversight based on unfamiliarity with Eala's drawing power. It was a post-confirmation choice. Tennis 365 noted that Eala has now lost in the second round at Madrid in 3 consecutive years, 2024 against Sorana Cirstea, 2025 against Iga Swiatek, and now 2026 against Mertens. Her career win percentage on clay sits at 39.1%, having lost 28 of her 46 matches on the surface. Those numbers reflect a genuine challenge with the red dirt. Slower ball movement, higher bounce, longer rallies that favor players with more baseline stamina and clay-specific footwork. Eala's game is built around pace, aggression, and the ability to redirect power. Clay neutralizes all 3 advantages simultaneously. Rusetsky acknowledged this gap but framed it as a developmental issue rather than a structural limitation. At 20 years old, Eala has not yet logged the clay court hours that players like Mertens or Ostapenko accumulated during their junior and early professional years. The Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca gave her a foundation on the surface, but foundation is not the same as fluency. The French Open is 6 weeks away. The Italian Open in Rome starts May 5th. Between now and Roland Garros, Eala has one confirmed WTA 1000 stop and no challenger cushion after the Catalonia withdrawal. That compressed schedule, combined with the emotional weight of the Madrid week, is exactly why the Catalonia withdrawal makes sense when you look at it clearly. She is not hiding, she is not spiraling, she is making a calculated decision to rest, reset, and enter Rome with enough physical and mental reserve to go deep in a draw that will feature Aryna Sabalenka, Elena Rybakina, and Iga Swiatek, three of the four best players in the world. Last year at the Italian Open, Eala lost in the first round to Marta Kostyuk in straight sets. A single win this time earns her ranking points she did not collect 12 months ago. Given that she is not defending anything significant on clay from last season, her ranking has nowhere to go but up, provided she wins matches. Eala posted on Instagram after her Madrid exit. "That's it for Madrid. So grateful for my time here. We'll be back stronger." 14 words, no elaboration, no breakdown of what went wrong. A player trained to manage her public presence carefully, choosing the shortest possible statement that closes the chapter without inviting further questions. The Filipino fanbase read that post and responded with thousands of supportive comments. But underneath the support, the Court 5 conversation continued. It has not stopped since the schedule was published. Boris Becker's silence on the specific Eala situation is itself a data point. Becker was active at Madrid in 2026, visible in the broadcast commentary space, commenting publicly on Iga Swiatek's illness-forced retirement from the tournament. He offered support, told her not to be too hard on herself, acknowledged that even the greatest champions face setbacks, but on the court assignment controversy, on the Filipino boycott energy, on the wider question of whether Madrid mishandled one of the most marketable young players in the women's game, nothing. A man who spent his entire post-playing career as one of tennis's loudest voices went completely speechless on the story that the rest of the tennis internet spent the final weekend of the Madrid tournament debating. That silence is not accidental. It reflects a broader discomfort inside the establishment with criticizing tournament directors publicly. The WTA circuit depends on these events. Players depend on them. Commentators and pundits who want continued access to those events choose their words accordingly, which means the accountability for what Madrid did or did not do for Eala's second-round draw is not coming from inside the sport's official commentary structure. It is coming from the Filipino fan base themselves, from independent tennis writers, and from the kind of channels that exist precisely to say the things that the broadcast commentary box will not. The Italian Open starts in less than 2 weeks. Eala will walk out onto Roman clay, carrying the weight of 3 consecutive early exits, a serve that analysts have publicly identified as exploitable, and a fan base whose passion is now sharpened by genuine anger at an institution that had every opportunity to treat their player correctly and made a different choice. What happens in Rome matters enormously, not just for rankings, not just for French Open preparation, but for the entire narrative around whether Eala and her supporters will be taken seriously by the tournaments that are still deciding where to put them. Rome has Sabalenka, it has Rybakina, it has Swiatek hunting her 4th Italian Open title. The draw will be brutal and the clay will be unforgiving. But none of that is the real test. The real test is whether the tournament hands Eala a court that matches the crowd she brings, or repeats the exact mistake Madrid just made in front of the entire tennis world. Madrid made their decision. Rome gets to make a different one. If this breakdown gave you something the mainstream tennis coverage did not, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the notification bell so you catch every video the moment it drops, because when the Italian Open draw comes out and the conversation around Eala starts again, you will want to be here for it from the beginning.